Severe intellectual disabilities, commonly referred to by SIDS. What is it and how to accommodate for it in the general education classroom? Hi, I'm Ella Sears, a freshman at Ball State University in the class teaching students with disabilities in the general education classroom. What is it? It is when a student is severely below grade level socially and/or intellectually. These students often have a hard time learning and processing information. A severe intellectual disability could also present itself by having poor cognitive motor planning skills. This means that their brain has a hard time connecting to their muscles. Why do teachers need to accommodate for this in their classroom? Education is pushing for all students to be included in the general education classroom. This is so all students can be included, and most of the time students learn better in closer proximity to their peers. So most, if not all, general education teachers will have some sort of disability come through their classroom door. It is important for these teachers to have the proper materials to help these students learn best and learn independently. With the proper treatment, students can increase their skills and independence. Some services for students that should be included in your classroom include differentiated instruction, pre- and post-teaching, visuals, individualized teaching, real-life concepts, alternative communication, life skills, and sensory support. Here are some examples of differentiated instruction. The first one is a math lesson. Hi, today I'm going to show you how to accommodate a math lesson for a student with a severe intellectual disability. This math lesson will go over adding to 5. To begin, I would either give the student 5 blocks or 5 pens, in my case, just 5 objects. Then I would demonstrate the action that I want them to do. So I'm going to start by saying, I'm going to put down 3 of my pens. Can you put down 3 pens? Then wait for them to do the same. Next, I'm going to put down my remaining 2 pens and ask the student to do the same. Then I'm going to say, let's add up the group of pens. And I would point to each one as we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look, we made 5 by 3 and 2. Thank you. Next, we're going to watch a video on differentiated instruction for reading. Hi, today I'm going to show you how to accommodate a reading lesson for a student with a severe intellectual disability. To begin, I'm going to show them a picture of a cat running. And I'm going to say, this is a picture of a cat. Next, I'm going to get out the sentence that we are working on. So this is the one I wrote down for demonstration purposes. I'm going to point to each word as I say it. The cat runs. Next, I'm going to ask the student to repeat after me. The cat runs. Then I'm going to have us say the sentence together as a whole. The cat runs. Next, I'm going to show them 2 different pictures. One as the previous picture of the cat running, and then another picture of something completely random. And I'm going to ask them to point to the picture of the cat running. Thank you. Hi, today I'm going to show you. Both of these lessons are how you could differentiate instruction for students with a severe learning disability. This will help them comprehend it better and simply learn the materials in a way that is beneficial for them. Of course, if you have a student who is even more intellectually impaired, then you can alter these lessons to better suit them. Now I'm going to go back to some of the other services you should offer. Pre- and post-teaching. This is when you pre-teach a lesson before you teach it to the whole class so the student has some idea of what you're about to go over. Post-teaching is when you go back to them after you've taught the lesson and teach it again to them in a different way to help them learn it better. Next is visuals. This is something that I used in the reading video. I showed the student a picture of a cat running. That is a great example of a visual you could use to help your student. Individualized teaching is when you teach specific for that student. That can be hard when you're in a general education classroom with 20 plus students, but it's really important, so take time to work with these students at least once or twice a week so they can really learn. Use real-life concepts. This is so important for students with severe intellectual disabilities to ensure that they are learning what the real world is going to be like. Alternative communication. Some of these students may have a hard time listening to you or reading something, and so it is important to have multiple forms that they can communicate with you. So have them write it down if they need to take a video and send it to you. Just have multiple forms for them to utilize. Next is life skills. It is really important for these students to develop life skills while they're in your classroom, so make sure these are incorporated in your lessons. Then last is sensory support, which is visualized on this slide here. So there are many different tools you can use in a sensory area that can really help these students learn. So you could use something like those fuzzy balls for the math lesson where we counted to 5 instead of using pens or blocks, and that will really help them learn and just interact with the materials. So next are some other accommodations in the general education classroom and why it is important to have these. So it is really important to have these accommodations in the classroom, but it's also important to be flexible to ensure that no student has to wait. Also, you need to remember that you may have to adapt the lessons to the individual because everyone has different learning needs. It is important that each student is learning at the correct pace with the correct materials for them to learn successfully. It is also important to remember that you may need to stretch lessons out, and you can also use other online materials like Headsprout, which has been shown to increase fluent reading in students. So these are where the sources are and some other stuff on these slides. These tools are there for a reason, so never ever feel guilty for using them. So you may feel guilty for having to use Headsprout to help the students be more fluent in their reading, but it's just not possible for you to get to all of these students. So utilize these tools. They are there for a reason. Next, goals for students. It is really important to have goals for these students so that you can check in and make sure they are meeting those goals. If they are not meeting these goals, you may need to adjust lesson plans for this student. So it is so important to have these to ensure that they are continuing to learn and continuing to gain independence and helping them just have a sense of belonging in the classroom. The sense of belonging in a classroom is so imperative because it will make the student want to learn. It will make the student want to come to class. Some other goals are just making sure the student is engaged with the curriculum. This is really, really important so that they are actually learning when you are teaching them. They're actually engaged. This is why a sensory support area may be beneficial for your classroom because it can help them really engage with the lesson by touching different things, seeing different things, just interacting with different materials. These goals show that you are providing great inclusive materials in the classroom and make sure that you are on track with these students. It is also really important to achieve academic goals for these students based on their current levels and where they should be by the end of the school year. Make a big goal for the end of the school year and smaller goals for every quarter to ensure that these students are on track. It is okay to adjust these goals and make sure you do to ensure that the student is staying on track and learning and making these goals that are accomplishable for these students. So then when they do accomplishment, it makes them feel happy and empowered. These are just my reference page. I encourage you to look at all of these references for yourself These are all briefly mentioned on some of the slides, and here are the image references, which I would really, really encourage you to look at. Thank you so much, and I hope you apply some of these to your classroom, or maybe you already do, and that is great. Have a great